District 191. And so I welcome everyone tonight who's watching from the universe. And so let me see here. We are looking forward to having Representative Liz Ryer join us, hopefully still this during our meeting time, and which will welcome her and educate her about what more about our district and our legislative platform. But as we are waiting, I think we could probably proceed to our next item, which is maybe just kind of discussing the timeline, because we know that our bill didn't really move forward this current legislative season. And so we're going to be needing to be preparing and kind of maybe understanding that what is our timeline, or what does our timeline look like to re-engage with our legislators for the next session. So, and I know that sessions usually don't start till January, but wondering if there's connections we want to be kind of putting onto our calendar for the earlier fall to start having conversations with our legislators, so that from the start we're kind of going in prepared with them. Thoughts?
That's what I would suggest. I think when it's the session right after the election, it's hard because we don't know who the representatives are going to be until the after November. So right now we know who the representatives are going to be come next January, because there's not an election this year. So we can start working with them, I think, earlier in the fall, so that it's not only on their radar, but so they can get it on the agenda at the legislature much earlier than what happened this year.
Yeah. Do we think like November is a good time to start, so that it's not like too early where it drops off? Or
I went to an MSBA thing like my first year, and that was kind of the timeline that they recommended, was like October, November, where people are starting to, they're not in session yet, but starting to think about it. But I see Representative Ryer is here, so maybe she would have some thoughts on that timing as well.
Yes, welcome, Representative Ryer. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have our legislative committee here. So welcome. Maybe we can start a little bit. We'll go through, kind of introduce ourselves, and then we can talk about our district a bit and our legislative platform for our district, and hear from you if you have questions, or if you've heard from your constituents of any information or thoughts you have for things happening within our district. So I'm Leslie Chester. I'm in my third year as a board member here and now the chair of this committee. And so welcome. I'm a Eagan resident, so I represent the northern side of our district. And so welcome. Should I select who talks next, Scott?
I'm still unmuted, I think, so I can go next. So I'm Scott Hume. I was elected at the same time as Leslie, so we're both a little over halfway through our first terms. I live in Burnsville. I have 2 kids still in the district, plus one who graduated in 2017. I have one who's a junior at the high school, and one who is a 8th grader at Nicollet. Anna, you can go next.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can go next. I'm actually a new member to the board. I was just elected this past fall. Very excited to.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I have a 24-year-old daughter, and I also have 2 younger children in the district, a 11-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I live in Burnsville.
Welcome, Representative Ryer. Superintendent Teresa Battle. Ending my second year, and it'll be 21 more days to the end of this school year. So
wow,
welcome.
around the corner.
Yeah, and then we have staff joining us, Aaron and Lisa, if you want to go.
Sure, I can go first. Representative Breyer, good to meet you virtually. Aaron Tinklenberg, I'm the district's communications director. I've been with the district for just about exactly 10 years and became the communications director about 3 years ago. So good to have you.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome Representative Ryer. I'm Lisa Ryder and I'm Executive Director of Business Services for the school district. I've been with the district for 15 years now and happy to have you here tonight and talk with you about our potential bill as well as other items. Thanks.
Good. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm sorry I had to cancel last month. I think it was kind of the last minute, but it's surprisingly unpredictable in the legislature. I'm used to having an illusion of control over my schedule, and that is now long gone. So I also appreciate you having some forbearance on whether or not I'd be on time today. So thank you all for that. I know that I came and met with you, I think it was in December. So it was before I was even sworn in. So I know some of your faces and remember some of that conversation. But it's good to be back here, especially now that I've been in my seat for a little bit and I'm a first term legislator. So I still have that. I just got elected buzz too. So it's a good feeling. But I'm happy to be here and I do have a couple of things on my mind as well, some of which overlaps with your agenda. So
good.
It's well timed.
Thank you. And I forgot to, I have 2 kids in the district too. I have an 8-year-old who's a 2nd grader at Ron Elementary and my son who is a sophomore at the high school. He is he has ASD and he's in the focused special ed programs at the high school.
It's funny, when I first moved to Eagan, it was almost 30 years ago now, and I lived near Ron, but on the 196 side. And for the life of me, I could not understand. I mean, I didn't know the school district boundaries. I didn't know anything about Eagan. It's like, wait, we have to go across the freeway and over to Oak Ridge when we could just walk to Ron.
Yes.
So I had Ron envy for all of those years, because I have 4 kids who went through the 196 schools. And my baby is just graduating from college this year. So, phew.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
I remember I visited the principal of Ron right after I got elected, and he pointed to the apartments that he could see from his office window and said, "See those apartments? That's 196."
Yep.
So I know what you mean about how close, so close yet so far.
Mhm.
I know when I was first elected, seeing the map too, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize it was literally right there. That it just spikes up right around Ron on either side. So it's very narrow for our area, for our kids to be assigned to go to Ron. I thought that was very, very different. For sure. And Ron is a great school. Although my daughter goes to Ron, my son went to both William Byrne and Edward Neal. So we have sampled 3 of the elementary schools here in Eagan, and they're all amazing.
And my kids have spent many hours on the rinks at Ron skating. So yeah, a bunch of hockey players.
Great. Well, I'm going to attempt to share my screen so I can show you our legislative platform. So we are a very newish type legislative. We haven't had a legislative committee much prior for the longest time. I think maybe the district had one many years back, but when Scott and I were elected to the board, it became a new committee. Having heard from my representative, Sandra Mason, kind of poking, saying, your district's the only district that doesn't have a legislative committee. So we have one. So we're about 2 years old, I want to say, as a committee, maybe going into our 3rd year as a committee. And we thought it was very important that we then be able to engage with our community members too, to help them become more aware of how to contact legislators too about what are the priorities of our district, and then for us as a whole district to be more unified around on what goals are for legislative action that are meaningful and impactful for our district and our kids. And so this year, our legislative, not used to this very much here.
Well, I've got you'd sent this as an attachment, so I do have it right here in front of me.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But so our goals, we had adopted 4 goals for this year. One is to, of course, increase per pupil funding by 2% per year. And I know that I've been seeing too in the news that this is not just our district, it's many districts that are asking for ensuring that we have that increase per pupil per year. I think 2% is kind of a minimum for what we would be really needing as a district, as all districts. I think last year maybe we wanted to say 5, or the previous year, the first year I think we were saying 5%. And then we had learned it was going to be 2 and 2. So we're hoping that there's going to be a renewal of support. The next one is reduce the cross subsidy for special education and English learning. As you may know, that districts are required to support and fund special education, but the reimbursement, especially at the federal level, does not match or equate or even come close to what the districts spend. And so therefore, what isn't then funded through support through the federal and additional state dollars, it then comes out of the general fund of all of the districts. And so we're really wanting to reduce that cross subsidy. We also want to provide targeted funding to increase diversity among teachers, because we really value as a district equity, inclusion, and addressing racism in our communities. And we know that especially serving a very diverse population of students, it's really important to have teachers reflective of the students that are in your district. And so that's another area of priority. And our final priority, which kind of when you came in, we were talking about this one, which was provide a legislative exemption to allow local control of property sale proceeds. Being new, and maybe what you had heard when you met with us in December, is that we had closed 3 of our properties, and as we were shifting through and looking at some of these properties, we're looking to sell, and therefore we know that, and maybe Lisa, I might rely on you to correct me, is that we know that when a district sells a property, it has to go to first cover any outstanding debt on the property, and then the remainder needs to be used for a particular purpose. And what we're seeking legislative exemption from is if after all debt has been paid for whatever might be remaining on the property, anything extra from that could become more of a general operating purpose for us, so that we could be using it for other purposes than that specific designation.
Okay. And I think that's one of our topic areas that we'll dig into a little bit more.
Yes, so we had wonderful support in trying to put together and have a bill go forward this legislative session. But we know that there was a lot of competition and a lot of bills being presented. And so ours did not move forward this time. And so we are trying to plan to timeline, how do we re-engage with our legislators and our senator and representative to bring it forward again in the next session.
And as I understand it, it's more of a policy bill, and it should fit well in next year's scope of work for the legislature. Is Sandy carrying that, Representative Mason, or who's carrying that in the House?
It's not her, and I can't.
Well,
I'm
if
not.
you need an
It's
author, something I'm happy to do if you need it. So
Wonderful, thank you. And because Dr. Battle, you knew who they were.
sorry.
So in the Senate, we have Senator Clausen, and in the House, it's Hanson, correct,
Oh,
Lisa?
good.
Yep. Mhm.
Great. Okay, good. Well, I'm happy to, I will definitely co-author with Representative Hanson and, you know, get informed about this and support her in any way I can.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, and we're figuring that maybe you as a new representative maybe know this or not, that we're thinking a good time to meet again and get prepared for the next session would be to reconnect in November.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, I think want to leave enough time, do it over the interim for sure. And I don't know if it's the kind of thing that will require any additional work between meeting and then going forward. Mid to late October might be safer just in case we need a second meeting. Otherwise, we'll be fighting the holidays and,
Oh.
You're all lovely, but Christmas is Christmas. So
Perfect. We'll note that so that we connect in October.
yeah, I just seriously think it's always good to leave a cushion in case we have a conversation, realize there's a key piece that would help that we hadn't thought about, and it's going to take some effort to think through.
Yeah. And we may have different information too, because we're going through the sale of one of our buildings, but I think we're starting gathering information for another property too. So we might have some more information come October as well.
So I'm aware of Metcalf, of course, and then I've heard that there were a couple of elementary schools. Is my rumor mill correct? I don't know the district that well to know which schools they are.
Yeah, we had we are no longer providing elementary school education at Sioux Trail and MW-Savage, but those two buildings, as we were looking at our properties, we know that we could repurpose them in a different way, so we're not looking at either one of those for sale. We are considering what could be done with Metcalf, but because Metcalf actually sits within the city of Eagan, there's a bunch of different conversations that need to happen there. And then the other building, we are in a is it a sale property agreement right now with River Ridge, which hosted our Transitions Best program. And so we knew that we could bring the Best program into Diamond Head Center, and so therefore we could relinquish ownership of that that smaller building. And then we're looking at possibly selling 2 of our outlots or parking lots on Diamond Head as well.
So with these being, it sounds like at least River Ridge, you've got things moving. Is the timing of the legislation going to be a problem for you?
Not with River Ridge. I think it's going to be more impactful with Metcalf and the 2 outlots.
Okay. And Metcalf was one of the items on my agenda because since we last met, I've been assigned to two committees, of course. I've been working on health and human service, or health, finance and policy, housing, preventing homelessness, and capital investment.
Mhm.
And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about housing, thinking about Dakota County's stark shortfall on available affordable housing, especially at the 30 and 60% AMIs, and looking for places where we could do investment in housing in the community. And so one of my questions for you is, what are you thinking about with that, that large and convenient space at Metcalf, recognizing that, it's Egan, and also having heard that the strip mall right by it on the Burnsville side of the line is also something that could potentially become available, that the community doesn't really like it because it's pretty run down. And whether or not that's something that in the whole discussion of housing options and not market rate housing, if there are conversations that we could be having. I've spoken with Representative Mason and Senator Carlson, so they know I'm having conversations about this, because I recognize this is not in my district, but it is in my area of attention as a legislator, and certainly in the county and the community. So that's something that I just wanted to put out there as a kernel. I don't know that today is the time to go deeply into it. When I start talking about it, I get really excited because I also spend time talking to people about climate and sustainable development, and the idea of being able to develop a property here in the community that is sustainable, that uses when I go really crazy, it's like, could we have an electric home? The people at Fresh Energy are talking about ways to do that, and they decided to back away from it in Highland Park, where they are developing in the Ford plant area. It's like, what could we do if we were looking at ways to support families in ways that are affordable for them to live into, because their utilities would be sustainable, that are good for the community, good for the climate, bring families in, which is also good for the schools, and keeps the community vibrant. And so that's something that I'm thinking about. I've talked with one of the Egan Council members, Mike Sapina, about it. And I've also talked a little bit with Senator Lindsay Port, about it, because she's also very interested in housing. We share that common interest. So I just wanted to put that out there as something on my mind, and just a question of whether or not you have a path and someone in mind who's interested in that already, or if it's a kind of open still, and we could be having those conversations. And yeah, because it's not a quick conversation, obviously. So. Thoughts,
Chair
reactions?
Chester,
Yes. Oh, no,
would you
go
like
ahead.
Lisa and I to weigh in?
Yes, for sure. I just know that our parameters is that it can't be a school. It's a competition. So,
And I think maybe this is what you're about to say, Dr. Battle. I think one of the things we also discussed is that because we didn't get that legislation passed this year, we're going to not move too quickly on putting Metcalf up for sale, because we need that. It's kind of a, I don't know, one of those things. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? And it's, we kind of need the one before the other can happen.
Yes, Director Hume, I was going to share that, so thank you. Additionally, we have engaged with Ellers to help us with that property. And so they did a little vetting about the possibilities also. One of the key factors is we'd have to go before the Egan City Council. Lisa can share what the zoning is right now, but we've also had conversations with the city of Burnsville as well as the city of Egan and about that property at the corner. And so the city of Burnsville has an interest in making sure that's viable and something acceptable to the community. And we do know Dakota County is also involved in some discussion too. I think because of the housing needs too. And so, Lisa, do you have anything to add? And so I think it's several entities that are interested in having conversations as well.
Yeah, there is interest. I think the other challenge for us is because we are looking for this to assist with our fund balance, provided the language is approved through legislation, we are wanting to make sure that we also consider the best possible offer we can receive on that property. So it's a combination of all those factors. And I think that currently, want to say it's, I'm sorry, I'm missing the term. I'm looking it up as we speak, but there is a requirement to change the zoning for the current Metcalf property within the city of Eagan for it to be utilized for something other than a school. So that is a necessity for whoever would develop that property. We know that to be the case. And we know that that would take a few months for them to work through the process that the city of Eagan has, but everyone is well aware of the property. Our city of Eagan and city of Burnsville have been communicating as well. And so, you know, there's a lot of conversation because of that, as you mentioned, that joint property that's abutting each other there. And that everyone's interested in trying to see something improve there.
Where does the property line change over? Is it like right where Metcalf ends is where it's Eagan, and then right where the mall starts is Burnsville, or where does lines?
The city boundary is along the north edge of our Metcalf property.
Okay.
Yep.
I wouldn't want it to be too straightforward or easy. It wouldn't be a fun puzzle then, right? And I think it's great that there is already conversation going and awareness of the needs and the issues and the dynamics. I also want to say just really directly that I would be surprised if you weren't thinking about it being a fair quality offer. I mean, of course you have to be thinking about that. So when I talk about looking at development for affordable type of housing, I'm not expecting that means that therefore it becomes, you know, undervalued for you.
Right.
So I just want to be clear about that.
Sure, thank you.
Yep. Good. So as I keep having conversations with these various entities about the possibilities and how the state could help or be a resource, who in your group should I be in touch with? I guess I walked out of December not even really thinking about it, but you know, who my main point person, Leslie, is it you? Just
For
things in
legislative committee, I think yes. But I would always then be involving Dr. Battle as well. So I would probably say Dr. Battle first and copy me.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't want to assume that you had that you were the first point of contact, but that's great. I don't really have anything else on that topic unless you all do. Another thing I wanted to talk about was graduation letters, and someone may have heard already from my legislative assistant, Andy Jorgensen. He's got this on his to-do list, but I would like to be sending something out to the graduating seniors, and we're making it general so that, because some of them might live in my district and most of them don't. So it's like in our area type of wording, but I would like to do that. If I think what we would need would be a spreadsheet with their names, assuming it depends, you know, I mean, we could mail them to their homes, but I'm assuming that you wouldn't be giving out home addresses for kids, but yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful thought, and congratulations to our seniors. They deserve it. It's been quite the year. So Director Aaron Tinklenberg, I think he can respond about how we might proceed.
Yeah, we for most students, address is part of their directory information, so it would be considered public information. So if you said Andy, your legislative assistant, if he requests that from us, we'd be able to provide it in an electronic form.
Okay.
So student name, and we have, you know, students graduating from 2 schools, from Burnsville High School and Burnsville Alternative High School.
Okay.
And so we could include that information, and then their addresses along with that. And then, yeah, if you guys want to mail things to them, I think that would be wonderful.
Thank you. It's great. So should he reach out to you? Who's the best person for him to contact?
Probably me. I can certainly handle that. I usually, if it's not me directly, I'll handle who it goes to after that. So, yep, straight to me.
Okay, great. And I have your email on this invite, so I will make sure
Perfect.
he connects with you.
And would you include our transition students too? Because kids' graduation is a big.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leslie, for
Yeah.
reminding me of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So is that you had mentioned Burnsville High School and Burnsville Alternative School. Are transition students different from that, or?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, the
That's what we call our BEST program. So it's our students in transition. So they're students who may need a little extra time to graduate, and so that and have some extra needs too. And so they have until, how old was it?
21, I think.
21 to
Yeah,
graduate.
and I think the letter that we're drafting would be appropriate for all, because it's really acknowledging the challenges of finishing their education during COVID and all that they've had to adapt to, and the determination and grit and optimism they've had to show. You know, I mean, it's just we're putting together, I think, you know, kind of a nice letter. And often with things like this, we do send them a voter registration form, not to encourage them in any direction or another politically, but to foster engagement. So great.
I think
good.
they'll appreciate the letter for sure.
Good. The last item I had on my agenda was to talk about more broadly how to help kids be engaged from a civics action perspective, and what I can do as a legislator. After the pandemic blocks on being able to come down to the state office building are lifted, of course, students would be welcome to come down and visit me. But are there things that would be helpful? And this isn't here's the answer today. This is a longer conversation about ways to, you know, talk to them about, you know, to a class about what kind of crazy path got me here, what kind of crazy path got other legislators I know, so that they know that you can come from all kinds of backgrounds and experiences. You know, domestic violence survivor who was on public assistance can be sitting in this chair now. You know, that kind of thing, because I think kids need to hear that, that it's not just people who were born to a political family. Because I know that, I mean, I even have friends who say, I can't believe I know a legislator. And it's like, I hope you're not disappointed. This is just me. But I think it's really important. And I think that, you know, I love your platform of, I'm just looking through my pages here, of representation, of making sure that kids see themselves. And while I bring a certain set of life experiences, other representatives I know would be happy to talk to them. We've got great representation just right here in Dakota County Representative Hanson's story is incredible. I mean, so to be able to say, how do we build visibility and help kids feel like political engagement is accessible and it's for them too. To me, that's a really important part of what I want to accomplish as a legislator. So, I mean, I'll just leave that with you and whatever that looks like, and call on me to, to step up and find a way.
I think there's ways to connect with Principal Helke at the high school with some of the courses our high schoolers take regarding student government or civics. I also hearing a little more about you too. I'm thinking, well, you'd be a great avid speaker. So I think there's many different points to help engage our students and share with them.
Well, in addition to the classes at the high school, there's also different clubs and organizations, and there's youth in government, Model UN, those types of things that will probably be very interested in connecting.
Well, back, when we're able to get back to somewhat normal things where we do like field trips, and if we're able to coordinate something where we take students out to, the House of Representatives or something like that, that I think would be very engaging for students.
Yeah, and there's really nothing like going from the state office building. There's a tunnel that goes to the Capitol, and go through the tunnel and you come out in these catacombs, and then you walk up the steps or go up the elevator, and there you are under the rotunda, and it's like it's pretty impressive to get
I've
to
actually
have that inside path.
Been on one of those state capitol tours. When I'm a former employee of Blue Cross Blue Shield, but we had a Citizen Blue that took us on Capitol tours. So I actually got to do that. So I went in the tunnels, which is it's pretty interesting and fascinating. Like you'd never know it's there. All underground. It's pretty cool.
Well, and there's several different days in activism on the Hill. So one of the things that with my former employer for 6 years, I was there in March for Homeless Day on the Hill, talking about housing that's affordable. So it's also a passion of mine to represent. And scheduling times to meet with your legislators there in their offices and talk about why it's important to you, why it's important to the community that we live in, and why it should be important for you, for the community that you represent, and stuff. So I think that would be really, and I think some of our students have been on the Hill when we pre-COVID, because I remember, I think I overlapped for Homeless Day on the Hill when we did have some students in the area there for, and I can't remember, they might have been there for maybe, because I think there was a push also for Mental Health Day on the Hill as well. And so they might have been there overlapping when I was there for Homeless Day on the Hill.
Yeah, has been a little bit more of not the energizing experience this year with doing the Day on the Hill things via Zoom. But it was still, you do what you can and you do what you have to. And I'm a Blue Cross alum too. I was there for about 12 years. So.
Awesome.
And I was at I just did a Citizen Blue tour of the Capitol event virtually the other day.
Cool.
Yeah.
And also it'd be interesting for students too to, even sit in or even if it's still virtual, maybe some of our students do this for some of their classes, is listening into the public hearings. So like, as we're trying to have a bill go forward for our district, we're going to be interesting to hear the hearings in which that might be being presented at, and kind of feeling the process.
Right. Yep. And some of those things, they don't take that much time, the actual hearing itself. it might be the kind of thing where having one of the legislative delegation be there saying, okay, now here's what's going on, and it's sort of being a little bit annotated that way, rather than just, well, who's this person, who's that person, but being able to talk about some of the dynamics, because I've learned pretty quickly that how much there is behind the scenes. That
I'd be interested in going on that field trip.
There you go. Good.
Great.
I think I went through, those were my 3 agenda items for today. What can I tell you? What are you interested in knowing about me or
Well, you shared a
policy?
little bit about your current committee work. Are there other priorities you have as a representative, like in supporting, is 191 the only district that you overlap, or are there other school districts, and are platforms similar in terms of seeking the increased support and
The support, the cross subsidy, the focus on equity are all common to the districts and to most people I talk to who are thinking about education matters. A lot of my district is 196. Egan High School is smack dab in the middle of my district. And then we also have kids from Eastview kind of on the edge. And then we have a little bit of 197, I want to say. So 3 districts. I'm not on an education committee, as you know, but spend time thinking about that and definitely support the education agenda and the legislation as it comes forward. One of my key things is the structural inequity and racism in our society that across policy areas, across housing and healthcare and economic opportunity and education and policing, and making sure that I think Chair Rena Moran said it as well as I've ever heard it, is that it's the butter baked into the cake, it's not the icing, and making sure that we're bringing an equity focus in all of our work. So I spend a lot of time in committees saying, have we considered how this will affect communities of color? Have we considered how this would affect the Indigenous community or Black community or people, then broadening it even beyond that. People with disabilities, have we thought about the impact on people who may have disabilities, and just reminding people, because my experience in the corporate world, when outside of more of the human diversity, even when you're talking to people about changing a corporate process like at Blue Cross, people in operations think about it differently than people in marketing or actuarial or underwriting, IT. And as soon as you have a room full of people and you say, hey, if we thought about how this would affect the operations people, they don't say, oh, who cares about operations people? They say, oh, good catch. I'm glad you mentioned that. And they build that in. And that's my working model, is that when you say, have you considered how this is going to work for people across all of the varied communities in our state? People go, oh, good catch, unless they say there is no such thing as racism, which is chillingly common, unfortunately. But then it's just really continuing to make the case. And so for me, that overarches all of the policy work that I do.
Thank you very much.
Quick question for you, Liz. When you were at Blue Cross, did you happen to meet Vajan?
Yeah. We've gotten to know each other actually outside of that, because I've been gone from Blue Cross for a while.
Okay.
But we are in regular touch.
Yeah, I've sent him an email to try and connect with him, because he's such a great wealth of knowledge. He was our VP of Equity and include diversity at Blue Cross.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
great, just a great person all around. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've now had a chance to talk with his wife also, who's a force in her own right, and regularly admire their children on Facebook. We haven't met in person because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I feel like I know people. Like I almost don't feel like it's good to meet you. It's like, oh, it's good to see you in person. But you know, I traveled a lot for work for like 6 or 7 years before I came into the legislature. And when I wasn't traveling, I was working from home. And so, you know, my work life was Zoom and conference calls and once in a while going out and seeing people in person. So I feel like I know the people that I'm talking to. I mean, I feel like I've met all of you, and sometime we will also be in a physical room. But it's, you know, to me, that's just how it feels.
I've worked from home for the last 8 years, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And I kind of love it that everybody's going through it now. And I love the humanizing of seeing people's kids come in and say, who are you talking to, Daddy? You know, and,
I've been admiring your cat in the background. Yes.
yes, that would be Charlotte.
Wouldn't see that if you were in the office at the Capitol, I bet.
No, but I do have a dog bed and a water dish for my pup if I want to bring her in on a long day when I'm not going to the floor.
Nice.
I wish there was like bring your cat to work day though.
I don't think my cat would not like that. She
Mine would not
like
either. She wants to be in my son's bed during the day.
And having to put her in her cat carrier and put her in the car and listen to her scream all the way to the Capitol. Yeah.
And they're very independent little fur animals too, for sure. Although mine would probably just curl up and be on my lap the whole time, or at least across my hands on the keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that the other day. I have a great picture. We have this device that we use for voting on the floor. It's a fingerprint reader so that we can legislate remotely. And I have this photo of my cat with the fingerprint reader between her paws, looking down on it like, how do you make this thing work?
She's going to try legislating.
Yeah, you know, she's like, I could do this job. All you do is sit and talk on the computer.
Does it recognize your thumbprint, or could she accidentally vote for you?
No, it wouldn't recognize her little claw print. Nope, it's all calibrated to us as individuals.
Okay.
It's a very secure system, and you have to go through VPN. You can't use it on a different computer. You can't use it on Wi-Fi. I mean, it's a really good system, and it's one of the things that allowed us to continue to do the work even when the pandemic was really bad. A lot of legislatures in different states were much more constrained than we were because of that.
Wow.
I like when technology brings that kind of value. And you know, the other thing that it's done is we do all our hearings by Zoom in the House, and they're hybrid in the Senate. But you know, again, like in some of our preventing homelessness hearings, we were having people from International Falls come and testify for 5 minutes.
Yep.
But they didn't have to drive all the way down here as they would have. And I think it really opens up the possibilities. Or we had people in shelter in Minneapolis who could sit in an office of someone they knew and were comfortable with and testify in a much less intimidating way than coming into the Capitol and being in a room with all these suits and people who are, you know, just gonna, I mean, it's intimidating. It just is. Zoom's enough. So I love the accessibility that it offers to all kinds of people, or people who are just busy. You know, people who are just, you know, busy, and they can come in and they can do their testimony and wait around for questions, but they don't have to turn it into a whole day.
Yeah, I think the benefits of the tech levy for our district really helped more than prepare us for the pandemic. I mean, as best as we could be, but I think we were a little ahead because we had so much implementation of tech access in our district. So we were able to grow and acclimate at such a faster pace, thanks to our tech lobby.
You know, that does raise another question, actually. You know, the federal funds are starting to be released, and we're looking at 3 areas in the bonding committee that are might be useful to know about, and talking to different government levels, including school districts. And like a lot of schools have lead service lines in them, and there's lead mitigation. And I don't know if that's a thing for your district or not, or green infrastructure opportunities. There are quite a lot of things that there could be funds available for physical infrastructure in the district. So I haven't read what are they called? They're like preliminary final rules. It's something pretty funny like that. But if that's something that you're interested in, I can send you a link to the documents. You might already have them. I don't know, but it might be something to think about. I don't think you have any bonding requests into us this year, but I would just like to get the word out, because if there are things, it's surprisingly broad, the different ways that the federal funds can be used, even on a developing your physical plant. So it's something to think about.
Wonderful.
Good, and I will send those to you also, Dr. Battle. And we could get on the phone and read them aloud to each other if we can't sleep.
Anna, Scott, do you have any other thoughts or questions you want to ask?
I do not. Thank you so much for joining us today, though. It's been a really good conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
We'll be certainly back in touch in October.
If not sooner.
And I just feel so fortunate to have, had this time with all of you, and not be in a crowd. Like we do a lot of meetings where it's the whole Dakota County delegation, and they're informative and interesting. But I really feel privileged to be able to just, be me and all of you. So thank you.
Yeah.
It's been great talking with you.
Thank you, and congratulations on your senior
Yes.
Yes.
graduation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I will be in touch with you, Erin, or Andy will. Great. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that kind of helps with our timeline too, knowing we're going to re-engage in October. So as we continue to meet, maybe at our September, August meeting, we can relook at the language we had before and see if there's any edits before we reconnect with our legislators. And then I think is it August? I want to say it might be in August that we will actually maybe get to have Angie Craig join us for our legislative committee. So I'm very excited about that because she can help. And I know that she has co-authored bills in terms of the special ed funding at the federal level. So the more that we can hear, or if there's anything we can do on behalf of a district to help champion any of that.
I attended her town hall at Eagle Ridge, I think, right before COVID shut everything down last February, I think it was. And she talked quite a bit about special ed funding and how important that was at that event. So that's exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited. I've spoken to her a number of times about special ed funding. So I'm very excited to have her be more introduced to our district, like her other representatives and senators have. So looking forward to that for sure. But that kind of concludes our agenda. Anna or Scott, do you have any other things you want to, as a other,
I don't.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. That concludes our meeting tonight, and we'll meet next month.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.